You are not allowed to return to your parents' house upon giving birth.
My mother-in-law said this, so I reluctantly gave up on the idea of going back to my parents' place for the birth. When my mom came to help after the birth, my husband got furious, saying, "What? Of course I'm against this. Why are you doing whatever you want?" Then, my mother-in-law also said, "You're our daughter-in-law, right? Why are you letting other people into our house?" and kicked my mom out. My anger exploded at these selfish people. I will never forgive you. My name is Michelle. I'm a 27-year-old stay-at-home mom. Until last year, I was working at a company, but I quit when I got pregnant. I considered taking maternity leave, but I wanted to focus on childcare. My husband, Nate, agreed with me. Nate cares about my health, but he just asks, "Are you okay?" and doesn't take any action. For example, I'd be happy if he took out the trash, cleaned up after meals, vacuumed, or putting the laundry away, but he doesn't do any housework at all. Apparently, my mother-in-law did everything for my husband, telling him he didn't have to do anything. My husband completely adopted his mom's attitude, always saying, "Housework is the wife's job." Even before I was pregnant, when we both worked, I did all the housework by myself. Even if I came home late because of overtime and my husband was home early, he would say, "Is dinner ready yet?" or "You need to do the laundry soon," while lounging on the couch playing with his phone. I gave up expecting any help, but I thought he would change once I got pregnant. However, he remained the same. In fact, he even became more troublesome.
Do you care about the baby more than me? Don't neglect me just because we have a baby on the way.
His constant complaints made me extremely frustrated. He doesn't help with anything, but I was so sick with morning sickness that I could hardly move. So, what should I do? I decided to ask my mom for help. My parents' house is about a 10-minute bike ride away. Fortunately, my mom, in her mid-50s, is still energetic and rides her bike with ease. When I couldn't move due to my condition, I asked her to help with shopping, cooking, and cleaning. It wasn't every day, just occasionally. But my husband didn't like this at all. Whenever I told him my mom came to help, he would get furious.
Why are you letting other people into our house?
Other people? She's my mom. Your mom comes over too, doesn't she?
It's different with my parents. You're married into this family, so your mom is now an outsider. Don't call her over without my permission.
What kind of outdated thinking is that? Sometimes I wonder if my husband is actually in his 60s instead of his 20s. I thought about this while holding my forehead in frustration at his absurd reasoning. It's because you don't help me at all. I'm sick and can hardly move. If you took care of me, I wouldn't need to call my mom. I countered, but my husband said, "Why should I help when I'm tired from work?" You're so cruel. I had so much more to say, but I didn't want to stress out the baby by arguing. Stress is the enemy during pregnancy, but thanks to my husband, I was constantly stressed.
I don't want to face your mom. Make sure she leaves before I get home.
He said such cruel things before going to work. As usual, he didn't clean up after breakfast. I sighed as I placed the dirty dishes in the sink and thought, I want to go back to my parents' house. But I understand the feeling of not wanting to see in-laws too often. No matter how good the relationship, they're still not blood relatives. However, if he doesn't want my mom coming over, it should be fair and equal.
I'm close by and tired, so I decided to drop in and rest.
My mother-in-law, Samantha, suddenly showed up without any notice. I thought this with a strained smile on my face. Even if I messaged my husband, Samantha showed up without any notice again, he would respond with, "What's the problem with my mom visiting?" Come on, there's a big problem with this.
It's hot today and I'm thirsty. Michelle, can I have some cold juice?
Ah, we only have coffee.
What? You're such an inconsiderate daughter-in-law. Then go buy some.
Wait, I have to go buy it?
Who else is there besides you? Are you suggesting that I, an old woman, should go? No way.
That's what I wanted to say. Making a pregnant woman go shopping, really? My mother-in-law always suddenly shows up and demands all sorts of hospitality. Sometimes she even stays for lunch. When I suggest ordering something, she says, "Don't waste the money my son earns. Just cook something." I'm pregnant and exhausted. But if I say I'll use the money I earned when I was working, she says, "Get the most expensive gourmet pizza then." I feel like punching my mother-in-law in the temple. That's not all. Since I can't clean or do laundry properly, the house is naturally messy. Seeing this, my mother-in-law orders me, at least clean up. With my big belly, vacuuming is a struggle. Yet she demands perfection, saying, "Can't you see the dust at your feet?" Even if I ask her to give me a heads up before coming, she retorts, "Why do I need to call before coming to my son's house?" If I weren't pregnant, I'd want to wrestle her to the ground. And it's not just my mother-in-law who barges in. My husband's younger sister, Emily, does the same. Emily is 21 years old. She failed to get into college and, after graduating from a vocational school, has been living a lazy life at her parents' house. She claims to be in bridal preparation, but seeing her laze around our house makes me want to ask, preparation for what? Like her mom, she demands meals, but when I ask for help, she cuts potatoes into chunks that look like mini carrots. When I asked her to add seasoning to the soup, she used up the entire new container of seasoning. When I was left speechless, she fled, saying, "I'm still in preparing." What kind of preparation involves cutting vegetables an inch thick or making overly salty soup? This is unhealthy and not something I can eat as a pregnant woman. Of course, neither my mother-in-law nor Emily ate it, so the food went to waste. And when they come over, they laze around for hours before leaving. When I asked if it was okay to leave my father-in-law alone, they said, "He likes being alone," but I knew her phone kept ringing. A glance at the display showed it was her husband, Greg. Clearly, he was telling her to come home soon. In the end, they stayed until my husband came home, and when I struggled to prepare dinner, the three of them went out to eat. What about my dinner? This is the worst. Because of all this, I'm very frustrated with my husband, who is cold to my mom but only cares about his own family. I also feel angry towards my inconsiderate mother-in-law and sister-in-law. I wanted to go back to my parents' house, but then my mother-in-law said something incredible.
How can you think of going back to your parents' house when you have our precious first grandchild? It's your first birth. I don't care. I raised 2 kids, and I'm ordering you to stay home.
I protested, but my husband was no help, saying, "Mom is right." My mother-in-law wouldn't listen. My sister-in-law said the same thing as my mother-in-law. I thought this was hopeless, so I said I'd give up going back to my parents' house, but I would ask my mom to help after the baby was born. This was also rejected. "You've got to be kidding me." I decided to take drastic measures. After a while, I safely gave birth to my daughter. She was the first grandchild on both sides, and everyone was overjoyed. I was happy too, but more relieved that it was finally over. I planned to focus on recovering my strength until discharge. But, of course, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law showed up. Without any notice, suddenly, outside visiting hours. It's unbelievable. Moreover, they both said, "What's with that face, Michelle? You should be happier that we're here," with some strange demands. When my sister-in-law said, Does this hospital not even have a vending machine? Michelle, go buy us something while we take care of the baby, I almost snapped. But before I could, a nurse snapped, and they were practically thrown out of the hospital. That night, my phone blew up with calls and messages from them. I had turned off my phone, so I was horrified when I saw the call history the next morning. I was discharged in that situation. I wondered what would happen next, but surprisingly, neither my mother-in-law nor my sister-in-law came. Apparently, my father-in-law had scolded them to be more considerate. Thank you, Greg. It's good that my mother-in-law and sister-in-law didn't come, but my useless and troublesome husband was still at home. As soon as I came home with the baby, he said, "Make dinner quickly. The future doesn't look bright." So my mom came to help early the next day. "She looks just like you when you were a baby," my mom said with a big smile. I wished she could stay over instead of just visiting, but I couldn't impose that much. Besides, if she and my husband ran into each other, he'd definitely complain. So she had to leave before he came home. An hour before my husband's usual return time, my mom was about to leave when he unexpectedly came home. Why? Why are you home early?
My boss told me to come home early because we have a new baby, and I thought it was lucky.
It's not lucky. You don't do anything, so there was no need for you to come home early. I couldn't complain because his coworkers were being kind, but this unexpected situation gave me a headache. There my mom and husband met.
Why is your mother here?
My husband was startled. From behind him, a voice said, "Is that Michelle's mother?" Now it was my turn to be shocked. My mother-in-law peeked out from behind my husband. And my sister-in-law too. Didn't Greg scold them to lay low? Did they really come during his business trip? To this extent. My mother unexpectedly faced my husband, mother-in-law, and sister-in-law's outrageous behavior. I thought my husband would at least put on a facade in front of my mom, but he made a blatantly unpleasant face.
Why is your mother here?
I asked her to help because I'm struggling after giving birth.
What? Of course, I hate it when she comes over without permission. Didn't I tell you before not to do whatever you want?
My husband's face twisted in anger at my reply. His expression was so hateful, like he'd eaten something incredibly sour, and he glared at me. But, I resisted the urge to pinch his cheek and tried to argue back, but my mother-in-law pushed my husband aside and stepped forward.
Michelle, do you understand your position?
She pointed a finger at me as soon as she stepped forward. My position?
You're our daughter-in-law, right? Why are you letting other people into our house?
But she's my mom.
The moment you got married, you became our daughter-in-law, and your home became ours. Your parent is now me. Don't do whatever you please.
But my body is still recovering from childbirth.
Oh, I can't stand this. Modern daughters-in-law are so thoughtless. Back in my day, even after childbirth, we did everything perfectly at home. For instance.
Oh, this is going to be a long lecture. It's tough to handle when I'm still recovering from childbirth. Just when I thought that, my mother-in-law said, "I'll save the lecture for later." I wondered why, but then she suddenly pushed my mom's back. "Wait, Samantha.
We'll take care of our precious grandchild. Outsiders, please leave."
She said this and forced my mom out. My mom left without saying anything, stunned by the sudden turn of events. How could you? My mom was here to help me. I glared at my mother-in-law and husband, ready to protest their outrageous behavior. But I was outnumbered.
Just sit down.
My mother-in-law, husband, and sister-in-law glared at me, and I, still struggling after childbirth, was forced to sit in the Sisa position and listen to a long lecture. After that, it was hell. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law came over almost every day. Sometimes they even stayed overnight. But they did nothing but laze around. When they were hungry, they'd make me go shopping or cook. They left their messes for me to clean, and I had to do the laundry. Cleaning the dirty house was, of course, my job. And they only occasionally took care of the baby, leaving most of the work to me. I had to take care of the housework, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law, and the baby all by myself. I was on the verge of collapsing, but somehow managed to hold on. It was pure determination. I refused to lose to these people. With sheer willpower, I survived those hellish days. And then 5 years passed. I turned 32, and my adorable daughter, Julia, turned 5. I've heard that girls grow up fast, and I'm experiencing that now. She has become very articulate. And like most girls these days, she's very strong-willed. After being trained by the hellish days with my husband, mother-in-law, and sister-in-law, I raised my daughter to not be influenced by them. The result?
Julia, can you go buy some snacks for Grandma?
No.
At 5 years old, she could firmly reject my mother-in-law's ridiculous requests.
Julia, can you massage Daddy's shoulders?
No.
My husband, who remained unchanged after our child was born, did neither housework nor childcare. He never changed a single diaper. He never took her to the park. On his days off, he either went out alone or lazed around the house. Naturally, our daughter didn't grow attached to him.
Then Julia, can you massage Grandma's shoulders?
Absolutely not.
My daughter didn't warm up to my mother-in-law either, who always tried to make her do things. Internally, I laughed devilishly as they both failed.
Michelle, what's wrong with your daughter?
My mother-in-law angrily demanded. Who knows? I brushed it off casually, feeling stronger for it.
You started working early and put her in daycare from a young age, so she became such a cheeky child.
Well, she's a sweet and kind child to me. Maybe it's because she finds your face irritating, Samantha?
What did you say?
I accidentally spoke my true feelings, but instead of panicking, I laughed at my mother-in-law's red-faced fury. Yes, I had become strong. Realizing it was pointless to argue further, my mother-in-law glared at me but said nothing more. Taking advantage of the moment, I turned on my computer to work, but she began talking. My daughter just gave birth. While I was ignoring it, she abruptly shut the laptop. Even when I glared at Samantha, she acted like she didn't notice a thing. Despite interfering with my work, she kept talking to my husband, ignoring me.
Though it was out of order, getting pregnant before marriage, it's still a happy occasion. I plan to visit the hospital tomorrow. Nate, are you coming too?
I don't think it's necessary to interfere with my work just to invite my husband, but I know it's pointless to question my mother-in-law's actions. Instead, I smirked and said, "Oh, I heard about that. Congratulations."
Yes, it's wonderful news. Michelle, since you have a job and income, you should give a generous gift.
But Samantha can't see her, right? Since she's an outsider.
What?
A gift? You've got to be kidding me. I have no interest in celebrating others.
What are you talking about? Even if it's by marriage, she's still your sister.
Didn't you tell me, Samantha? When I got married, I became part of your family, and my parents became outsiders. You kicked my mom out, saying she was an outsider. Remember?
What?
She might have forgotten, but I haven't forgotten even after 5 years. When I said this, glaring, my mother-in-law flinched.
Hey, what are you saying?
You said it too, didn't you? I quickly glared at my husband, who was trying to support his mother. You said I was an outsider to my own family, so you didn't let my parents see their granddaughter, Julia. You shut out my mom, who was trying to help me after childbirth, and instead, Samantha, you and your daughter stayed at our house and did nothing but boss me around. Nate, you didn't do anything either, did you?
What? Well, because you're the wife.
Yes, I recorded that. You think a wife should serve her in-laws and not rely on her own parents, right? Well, the same goes for Emily. I said this with a grin, holding my phone. My husband and mother-in-law panicked.
Hey, don't mess around. The situation with my sister is different.
That's right. She's my precious daughter. Don't you dare compare them.
They both started blaming me. So I calmly put my phone on the table and took a sip of tea. Then, I took a deep breath and shouted, "Don't mess with me." They both froze in fear. I put one foot on the low table and rested my elbow on my knee, glaring at them. Take responsibility for what you say. Don't act like children.
I'm sorry.
Don't think an apology is enough. I've been waiting for this day, I said, laughing wickedly, and their faces turned pale. I know I look like a villain right now. You shut out my parents, so there will be consequences. Greg alone is enough to visit Emily and her baby. No need for any help. I've already explained everything to Greg. Emily's husband will hear about this soon.
What?
And I've recorded all of this. I'll send the audio to Emily's husband soon.
No way.
It's amazing how much you can do with a smartphone these days. Gathering evidence is a breeze. I said this with a grin, and my mother-in-law's eyes filled with tears. So, my daughter and I are leaving.
What?
My husband's stupid voice echoed as I announced we were leaving.
Leaving? What are you talking about?
I have a good job and an income now. I'll take child support, but I don't need you anymore.
What?
You don't help around the house, you don't care about me, you don't care about our daughter, you don't even talk to me properly. Do you think I need a husband like that?
I think you do.
I yelled back, I don't, at my husband, who nodded vigorously and took my daughter's hand.
Julia, you have daddy, don't you? You want to stay with me, right?
My desperate husband clung to our daughter as a last resort. But she replied,
I don't need you.
Her immediate response made him slump. I had planned to get revenge and then get a divorce. Since I heard about my sister-in-law's pregnancy, I had been planning to leave. I had already found a new place. Afterward, my daughter and I quickly moved out. After negotiations through a lawyer, my husband became my ex-husband. I didn't trust him, so he paid child support in a lump sum. He ended up broke. We split the joint savings, but he hardly had any savings. The amount was so small that my ex-father-in-law covered the rest of the child support. He had always been fed up with my ex-husband and mother-in-law's behavior. He was tired of their selfishness. So, my divorce led to their divorce too. There was a division of property, but my ex-mother-in-law, who had never worked and only took care of her son, had no life skills. She moved in with my ex-husband, but he was already in debt to his father. They ended up moving into a shabby apartment. They now live a life of poverty, trembling from the drafts, eating bread crusts daily. My ex-sister-in-law also got divorced. Her husband found out she had no housework skills after they got married because she got pregnant first. Her husband did the housework, but she took advantage of it and neglected her baby to go out and have fun. One day, she left the baby alone for hours to go to a casino, and when her husband found out, he took the baby, and they divorced. She also moved into the shabby apartment with my ex-husband. There's no way my ex-husband could support both his mother and sister with his income. They are now living without electricity, gas, or water. This information came from my ex-father-in-law. It was so much of a case of you reap what you sow that I couldn't help but laugh. As for my daughter and me, we're enjoying our life together. Our new home is close to my parents' house, and they visit often. My daughter loves her maternal grandparents, who spend time with her, and she's very attached to them. She hugs her grandmother with a big smile, a stark contrast to her cold attitude towards my ex-husband and mother-in-law. Seeing her smile, I know I made the right decision to get divorced. I don't want her to end up like them. I heard my daughter say, "Mom, I put away my plate. I'm going to fold the laundry now." Even without parents, children grow up well. Seeing my daughter grow up well made me wipe away a tear of joy.